Hello, BookTube. I get a lot of feedback on this channel under ordinary circumstances. The lines of communication very much run both ways here. This week I've been getting more feedback than usual about a couple of things. Great many people liked me just picking a Bible passage and whinging on about it. That struck a chord with quite a few people. And a huge number of people have been telling me that they loved that Comic Book Wednesday segment that I did, which was about a comic book that came out in 1968. It wasn't about new issues like comic book channels always are. And I've been hearing from dozens and dozens of people who have never seen any of my other videos. Somehow or other, the YouTube algorithm has picked up that Comic Book Wednesday and put it in front of a lot of people who had never heard of BookTube, never heard of me. And the response was, they've been all over the map, always positive. But the theme running through most of the responses is that it seemed amazing to them to watch a video from somebody who is every bit as responsive and enthusiastic as they are about comic books, only then that somebody holds up a comic book from when their parents were children and talks about it enthusiastically. Now, you all, that's not going to be any mystery to you all, because you have seen me enthuse in equal measure about the latest Meg novel and about a new translation of Herodotus. So it's not going to be any surprise to you, but apparently, for instance, the comic book YouTube community finds this remarkable and likes it for some reason. I don't know why. But I've been thinking a lot about both of those things. Of course, you get feedback like that. I don't do this for the clicks. I do not have any monetization on my videos, nor do I ever intend to monetize them. You don't charge people to talk to you. Not friends of yours anyway. And but I'm still thinking about it because, part of this, as I've mentioned, is performative. And if somebody likes something, if people like something that you're doing, this shouldn't be all about my ego. The one thing that I have almost unanimous, I mean, there are a couple of holdouts, but the verdict is almost unanimous that one of the things you almost all love is extremely long mail haul videos. And I would be happy to oblige, but this morning there are again only 3 packages. And there's no oversized box this time. It's just 3 normal book packages. What can I do? There'll be more mail today, and we have lots of other stuff to talk about as well. It's outside of mail. So I thought we'd just go through these packages. There's just 3 of them. We'll see what we can find. It might be something interesting. Almost always, right? Usually, my rule of thumb for this channel is that if I have 3 or 4 or 5 packages and in a mail haul and I open them all on camera and there isn't anything interesting, doesn't necessarily have to be a Steve book. I don't necessarily have to squeal. But if there's nothing interesting at all, if it's just a blah pile of packages, then usually I don't upload that video. But let's take a look. Okay. All right. This first one is a thriller. It's from Penguin. I think it comes out in May. No, July. This comes out in late July. It's by Shari Lapina, and it's called Someone We Know, by the author of The Couple Next Door, which I went into with high hopes and thought was boringly programmatic. So let's see what this one is. Shari Lapina is among the rare breed of prolific women thriller writers who pen a new bestseller every year. She hit the literary scene guns a-blazing with her first thriller, The Couple Next Door. It was a New York Times bestseller list for a remarkable 23 consecutive weeks. Good Lord, that is remarkable. Good for her. And has sold more than 1.3 million copies to date in the U.S. and Canada. Her second book, A Stranger in the House, sealed her stature as a best-selling novelist and publishing phenomenon who knows what thriller readers want. And her third novel, An Unwanted Guest, received high marks for its suspenseful storytelling and locked-room mystery approach. A tip of the hat to Dame Agatha Christie. In this latest book, a teenage boy has been breaking into houses in a quiet, leafy suburb of upstate New York and into the homeowners' computers as well, learning their secrets and maybe sharing some of them. Who is he, and what might he have uncovered? As whispers start to circulate, suspicion mounts. When a woman down the street is found murdered, the tension reaches a fever pitch. Who killed her? Who knows more than they're telling? And how far will all these very nice people go to protect their secrets. Okay, so this comes out in late July, when I presume summer will be here, and with The Couple Next Door, I think did we see The Couple Next Door on this channel? Maybe not. Maybe it was a little too far ago. But with The Couple Next Door, I read the pub sheet, I read the plot description, I sat back and I said, well, okay, if this author isn't trying at all, then this is what will happen. These three things in this order will happen. And they did. They did. Absolutely perfectly down the line. 1, 2, 3 in that order. And I'm not saying that a thriller can't be programmatic. Of course, this is a programmatic subgenre, and you all know I don't care about originality in a work, originality of conception. I don't care about that at all, not in the slightest. It's all about the execution. It's all about how it's done. But that having been said, the thriller subgenre kind of, one of its signature hallmarks is the thrill part of thriller, is something, a twist that you didn't see coming, or that first seems outlandish but then turns out to be true. You look at all the great Hallmark thrillers, it's true for all of them. And in the Couple Next Door, that element was completely absent. And that actually disappointed me. Plus, I didn't think that the prose itself was anything to write home about. And in Someone We Know, that plot description that we just heard, a teenager is breaking into homes in a leafy suburb of New York and stealing things and breaking into people's computers as well, and maybe sharing people's secrets. The programmatic unfolding of that plot line would be that we are at first, by the police, by the investigators, led to assume that the subsequent murder, is caused by that teenager. But the gist of the plot, as thriller readers will think, will be automatically to know, no, one of the people in that suburb is setting that kid up as the killer. But that he is not actually guilty of anything more than hacking. And the utterly predictable twist on that storyline would be if the two are actually guilty together. If one of the people in the suburb is in cahoots with the kid and their scheme goes out of control and ends up with someone dead. And I'll just have to hope. I mean, that would be a good story, provided the prose is radioactively great. This prose from this author, I've only read the one book. I haven't read the others that followed it. So this will be my second, Shari Lapina. And the prose in the first one that I read wasn't radioactive. It wasn't leap off the page great. So we'll just see. We'll just have to see if this does that and nothing else. If it is totally predictable, I don't know what I'm supposed to make of it. But we will see. Like I've mentioned on this channel many times, I'm always up for a good thriller, always. So I'll give it a try. I won't give it a try right away. It's late July, so I'll wait a bit. But let's see what this next one is. Oh. Oh, okay. All right, here, hold on. Bear with me here. This cover has some schmutz on it. Why people do this, I have no idea. No machine does this. Somebody had to put all this schmutz on the cover themselves. Somebody had to decide to do it, and why you decide to do that on the front cover instead of the back cover is really a mystery. It's not all coming off. All right, well, it doesn't matter. Enough of it came off. This is a new biography. It's a new work of history. It is right up my alley. It's about a figure that I know everything about and am deeply fascinated by. And despite all of that, you hear a but in my voice, and you're right to. And in this case, believe it or not, it's the biographer, not the subject matter. Okay, well, there's going to be a little schmutz on this, but we'll see the finished copy, which won't have anything at all. This is a new biography. I did not actually know this was coming. This is a new biography of Prince Albert. The husband, the Prince Consort of Queen Victoria, who did a lot, who is a remarkably odd and interesting figure in royal history. The subtitle is The Man Who Saved the Monarchy, and the author is A.N. Wilson. So the cover gets my hopes up at once with a biography of Prince Albert. I have them all, including the 5-volume one that I wrote about and loved. But then the cover also dashes my hopes, not only because there's a faded sepia tone photograph when there's no reason for that at all. There are a million alternatives to putting a boring faded sepia tone cover on the book just to signal that it's a work of biography or history. But the cover also dashes my hopes because of A.N. Wilson, who I have enjoyed. I think a lot of you probably enjoyed his work as well. Some of his biographies, for instance, like everybody else in the world, I read his biography of Tolstoy and thought that it was good. He has seemed to me to deteriorate with time. He wrote a weirdly sympathetic biography of Adolf Hitler, for instance, and he wrote a book about Elizabethan England that it was so soilingly misogynistic. That wasn't the point of it. The point of it was just to go over this familiar ground. He's one of these professional historians that goes over familiar ground and gets a book out of it, and has a book contract and a faithful audience, because when he does a good job going over familiar ground, it's readable. But it wasn't an attack job on Queen Elizabeth or anybody else. It was just once the curtain has been lifted on a little bit of this guy's ideas, or a little bit of his personality as a person, I started to see it leaking through in the books, and it soiled them for me. I don't know. I guess, that's been a few books now. I guess maybe I should go back to him and just clear my mind and give it another try. Maybe he was going through a bad divorce, or just had a bad editor, or whatever. It happens, and he certainly has enough worthwhile work to his credit that I should probably do that. So I will do that with this book, and see if I don't mind arguing with a historian at all. No, not at all. I argue with popular historians all the time, mainly because they cut corners knowingly, thinking that their audience is dumber than their audience really is. That always drives me crazy. That always drives me absolutely crazy. The reading audience, the people who are actually going to pick up a 350-page biography of Prince Albert, are every bit as smart as A.N. Wilson himself. He does not have to cut corners. They're going to notice it, and they're not going to like it. And I will give it a try. I will give it a try and see if maybe I had a bad period, one way or another. That causes a little bit of a wince of hesitation here, which would ordinarily, this would be a squealing Steve book. This is uber British royal history, and I know I've read a lot of British royal history. I've read every major book on Prince Albert. This will be talked about. It will be reviewed. It will sell. More importantly, for a work of popular biography of a figure that 1 out of 10 people can name, it will sell. So I should probably pay it close, open-minded attention. I will. This comes out when? August. So we shall see. I myself am of... I'm not going to try and pick a fight with this author before I've even read a single word of the book. I myself am under the impression that Queen Victoria saved the monarchy, not Prince Albert. But maybe that's a rarity. I don't know. I think the more you read about what she did and didn't do in the monarchy, the more impressed you are. And it's amazing to me. It always strikes me when I do that reading, especially close reading of primary sources. It always strikes me. Something strikes me whenever I do that would have horrified Victoria herself. She would have been the first to argue. And the thing that strikes me is how little an impression Albert made on her. She grew on her own. She told him before they were married that she was her own, basically, to use 20th century argot, she was her own person. And she protested endlessly for the next 30 years that it was all him, that she was totally devoted to him, that he did the thinking and she did not. You only have to read her letters. Well, anyway, let's see what the Harper has to say about this. Eminent biographer, novelist, and journalist A.N. Wilson shifted perceptions of the 19th century with his acclaimed revisionist panorama, The Victorians. And The Victorians was very good. He also did a book called After the Victorians that was also very good. While his best-selling Victoria, A Life provided a shimmering portrait of a tempestuous monarch, now in his much-anticipated companion volume, Prince Albert, being published on the 200th anniversary of the Prince Consort's birth, offers a deeply textured and ambitious portrait of an important, if often overlooked, historical figure who shaped a nation and an age. The biography has been called long overdue by Queen Elizabeth herself, who approved Wilson as the biographer and permitted him access to royal archives. Okay. All right. Well, all due respect to Her Majesty the Queen, Prince Albert is not long overdue for a biography. He's had many of them, and many of them have been revisionist, and many of them have said the equivalent of "he saved the monarchy." So maybe the Queen needs to read a bit more, like in Alan Bennett's the Uncommon Reader. Maybe she needs to fall in love with reading. When I was writing about Queen Victoria, I came to loathe Albert, Wilson told The Guardian, but now I see his genius. While Victoria would become the nominal symbol of her age, it was Albert, Wilson argues, who made Victorian Britain a vibrant political, technological, scientific, and intellectual hotspot. Albert was a dominant shaper and architect of Victorian inquiry and progress, a composer, oh for God's sake, an engineer, soldier, what on earth, politician, linguist, bibliophile, and military strategist of formidable gifts. Okay, all right, okay, all right. Well, then I'm assuming in the opening pages of this book we will learn about how he was rocketed to Victorian England from the doomed planet Krypton. All right, well, those attributes that you just read in a long string, almost none of those are true. But we shall see. Maybe the tick of admission for A.N. Wilson to those Royal Archives was hysterical overpraise. Maybe that was the case. If so, most historians would turn that job down. So, well, I'm not going to pick a fight with the author. I will read the book and see. I will report back. So then we'll do this last one. That's kind of weird, though. That middle one was kind of weird, because in a normal mail haul, that would have been the ultimate Steve book. But it had to be A.N. Wilson. Okay. All right. This next one is just unbelievable to me. This is just unbelievable. Okay, this comes out in November. Probably a paperback. It's $18. They don't make $18 hardcovers anymore. This will probably be a paperback. This is the third book, I think, the final book in the Dark Storm series by Chris Green. Series about a young guy who discovers that he has superpowers, and just in time, because it's his destiny to save the world. But unbelievably, just unbelievably, this book is actually called The Reckoning. I do, once again, call for a complete moratorium on The Reckoning as the title of a book. A complete moratorium. No one should ever use this as the title of a book again. It's like calling a book Second Chances. Why do it? Why do it? I guarantee you that the first 5 pages of this book will yield 10 candidates for a better title than The Reckoning, which has been used by, I mean, go on Goodreads or Amazon. If you don't believe me, it's been used by 10 million books. It is the most boring title in the world, and it's so boring. It's so incredibly overused. But how can it not prejudice you against the book? If the author insisted on this as a title, then what other tired gimmicks has the author insisted on? You have to wonder that. But let's see here. This is the final book in the Darkstorm novel about a young man who discovers that it's his destiny to lead the war against darkness with a capital D. Not much is left of Gabriel's life ever since he discovered his true destiny as a warrior knight in the final battle against darkness. His life has been rife with soul-sucking demons and creatures straight out of the books he studied in college. His life is no longer ordinary. As a warrior, he has no choice but to fight for good, and if he screws up, the world is toast. The war between good and evil has just been kicked up a notch for Gabriel Redfeather and his partner, the half-Valkyrie, Demona Sanchez. How can you be a half-Valkyrie? What does that mean? How can you be a half-Valkyrie? I guess I'll find out. Gabriel is the only one who can stem the tide of darkness creeping across the land. Will he be able to do it without falling into darkness himself? I am guessing, I'm thinking here that I have not read the earlier books in this series. I'm thinking that that is the case. What are they? The Darkstorm and the Demon Hunt. I don't think I have read either one of them. But I'm gonna read this one anyway. The Reckoning. I'm gonna read The Reckoning and see. This comes out in November. Good Lord. So I may wait. In fact, I may use that time to try and rustle up the first 2 books. In fact, as I've mentioned, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm remembering that I've said on this channel a few times that I want to get back to using the Boston Public Library. And the perfect use to make of it is to go in with a little list of things that I'm looking for that are not new releases, because the library, let's face it, they're not good at new releases. So they're much worse than I am at new releases. For instance, for any of the books that you see on this channel have a 100-person waiting list at the Boston Public Library, and you have to go and get them. They come to me, so I wouldn't. It's wrong to go to the library for me for new releases, but. The what were those two? The Dark Storm and the Demon Hunt may be at the Boston Public Library, and why should I bother a publicist with them when I'm probably not going to keep them? Why shouldn't I just get them from the library? So I will jot those down on my phone, and I'll jot down a few other things as well. We've seen in the course of last week there were a few things that had predecessor novels that I could just make a list and go and see what's there. Giselle told me that it is possible to simply go online to the Boston Public Library's website, look up the things I'm looking for, find out whether or not they're actually there, and have them put on hold. That seems a little bit... I'd rather go in and look around. I'm not nearly as familiar with the Boston Public Library's layout as I was before its massive renovation. So it'll give me an excuse not only to go there, but also to look around, to explore. So I think I'll do that. I will do those first two books, and I'll go back. This week, I'm wondering if I have any of them here. This week, there were a couple of books. Last week, I'm sorry. This week, too. There were a couple of books that had predecessors that I don't have. I should just go and make a list of those and see how many of them are at the library. I will do that and try and get the library back on my route, especially since it might start to warm up someday here in Boston. But anyway, that is a curiously frustrating mail haul. Good Lord. So we have Someone We Know, the latest thriller by Shari Lapina, which a thriller would ordinarily please me, but the one thriller by this author that I've read kind of bored me. I predicted everything that would happen long before I got there, and that kind of ruined it because the execution didn't save it from that predictability. Then we have a big new biography of Prince Albert that is going to be reviewed by everybody. It's going to be in every bookstore. It's going to actually sell, but it has to be by A.N. Wilson. So I will put aside the bad impressions that this author's last few books have made on me, and I will try this again. I will try this book about the noted soldier and bibliophile Prince Albert. Oh, he's also a composer. Sorry, and a scientist. And also, probably without exaggeration, the 250th book that I have read with the title The Reckoning, out of 250 million. But I think in my life, I've probably read 250 books with the title The Reckoning. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't have anything to do with this book. And like I said, in the first 5 pages of this book, I will find perfect alternate candidates that were, therefore, right in front of the author and his agent and his publisher, and yet they went with The Reckoning. Just mystifying. But a good kick in the behind. I can go to the library and get those 2 Shari Lapina novels that I haven't read, so that maybe I can chart a growth as a novelist instead of being surprised if I see growth here. I can go to the library and get A.N. Wilson's biography of Queen Victoria. He says in that comment for The Guardian that when he was writing that biography, he came to loathe Prince Albert. Is that visible on the page? Might be interesting to know that before I read this book and maybe review it. And The Reckoning. All 3 of these. The Reckoning has 2 books previous in the series. All 3 of these have reasons for me to go to the Boston Public Library and make a nuisance of myself. So that's what I will start to do. Maybe I'll take you along. Wouldn't that be fun? Especially since now that the phone is behaving itself, I might be able to do at least a brief thing at the Boston Public Library. The renovation is amazing. I don't have the technical ability to show you the before and after, but it used to be a brutalist 1960s atomic war bunker. That's exactly what it felt like when you walked in. The door was this big. The walls were 10-foot thick concrete. There was virtually no lighting at all except from a skylight that was dirty the day it was put in. It was a bunker. It was a Pentagon type thing, and it's totally different now. They've installed glass walls everywhere, opened up the floor plan in ways that I didn't think were actually architecturally possible. And not only were they possible, but it's a total success. So I can't show you the old building, but there are plenty of pictures online. I can show you the new building, though. Maybe we'll do that. I'll think about that. But in the meantime, like I said, we have plenty more bookish stuff to talk about, so I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.